Tales from the Black Mountains. Once upon a time, in a place not too far away, there was a land of rugged hills and towering mountains, dancing streams and endless rivers, valleys deep and caves dark, magic, wonder, and worlds apart from the normal and the mundane. A land where dragons roam and creatures speak, trees whisper and heroes sleep. This is the land of the Black Mountains, deep in the heart of Wales, the wind of the sleeping sails, for when night descends and your dreams whisk you away, there is nowhere better to journey and forget the troubles of a day. Let your body relax and walk side by side with the voice of the mountains. Let me be your guide. Tonight our tale takes us high into the cloud-scattered sky, over peaks and windswept valleys to a shadow racing along the ground, a shadow that seems to glide and morph along the rocks and slice through the huddled flocks of sheep that brace for a moment before relaxing as the shadow shoots away. It climbs trees and jumps across the treetops as it grows and shrinks, stutters and blinks as wings are furled, and goes even faster, growing ever larger as Dylan dives. Dylan the fearless and his travelling companion, a squirrel named Sammy, almost frozen on his back, a smile on his face and his eyes opened wide as Dylan sailed and glided through the air. "Hold on, little squirrel," Dylan roared as he soared up faster. Now into the moors, his shadow skipped over each bog and mud-thick pond. Dylan knew exactly where he was headed. As he shot through the air, his shadow would respond. 20 years of waiting drove him on quicker, but Sammy on his back was feeling ever colder, the sun dropping lower and lower as the day neared its end. The wind that was almost forcing him from his dragon steed also cut into his bones, the pain increasing with the speed. He slowly felt his eyes begin to close and tried to speak to let Dylan know he was fading. But not a word could he make as he slipped back and felt the wind take him as his eyes slipped to black. A dragon, however, is incredibly perceptive, and as soon as he felt the tiny weight of Sammy leave, Dylan threw his wings wide, and with a mighty heave brought his body horizontal, stopping his flight within feet. Without a pause he rolled over backwards, and scanning the air, spotted Sammy falling to the ground. Diving with a flash, he went straight for Sammy, knowing he had but one chance to make the catch, and with a second to spare and a snatch through the air, Dylan saved Sammy from his meeting with the ground. Landing heavily on a barren, windswept hill, he placed Sammy down and sheltered him with his body. The little squirrel slowly came back into the light. Confused where he was and glad to be alive, he looked up at the dragon, who seemed to smile. "Forgive me, Sammy. I was so intent on my own goals, I forgot to consider those who had taken me this far. Rest easy, we have time. It is not much further until we find Meyrick. He flies near these lands." Sammy nodded with thanks and began to feel a little warmer. He allowed his body to shelter and rest. Dylan standing guard as the night passed on. Dylan stood above him, unmoving, his gaze fixed to the east, the direction he knew he must go. I have told you little about Meirig, and perhaps now is the time, with our friends resting until the sun began its climb. He was one of 3 dragons here in the Black Mountains back when these hills were young. The 3 arrived together from where no one knows, but they soon made these mountains their home. Dylan was one, the bravest of the 3. We have met and know him as well as can be. Ivor is the second, perhaps the most rare, wisest of them all. His presence is scarce. Then Meirig, the third, and the youngest of the 3, once as close to Dylan as siblings would be. Brothers? Perhaps. Once, but no more. Jealous of the attention Dylan would receive as he would twist and soar, firing magic into the sky, Meirig became bitter, began to turn sly, tricking and twisting creatures for his own gain, desperate to be noticed by Dylan again. But Dylan, almost blinded by his own might, continued to ignore his friend until one night things came to a head, and Meirig stole Dylan's flame. Things between the two would never be the same, and 20 years later, perhaps a lot longer than Meirig would have expected, Dylan was nearing his mountain home, a rage inside him beyond anything these mountains have ever known. The sun at last was rising, and with it Sammy came to life. "I'm ready, Dylan. Let's find him," he said as he wiped the sleep from an eye. "Yes," said Dylan. "Not long, my friend, not now." And with 2 beats of his wings they were climbing, and heading over the barren landscape, the sun sparking the shadow below them to life as they headed onwards. The ground beneath them became increasingly barren, grass turned to stone, and rocks to sharp boulders that seemed to slice the shadow in 2. The air itself became thicker, and Dylan seemed to tense. The world around them became darker, and yet they knew it was not night. It wasn't until the shadow disappeared altogether that Dylan caught a glimpse of a mountain of almost black rock. "We are here," he said. Into the green-flecked forests and alongside star-startled streams, up amongst the mountain thrones thrust into the sky, and through the frosted fern tips and burning breath of howling wind, we will return again. Norse thar, friend.